Yo, what's going on, guys? Mush back at it with another video. So many of you guys have asked for it. So many of you guys have wanted the return of PC builds. And here I am delivering. I think it's been around a year since we last did a PC build. Because of the crazy GPU prices, there really has been no reason to build a new PC, especially if you're on a tight budget. I just recommended people to go buy a pre-built computer, but prices have really gotten to the point where it's a great option to build a PC right now, and that's what we're looking at in this video, a $600 all AMD build. Now, I have to be honest, we do overshoot the $600 budget by a little bit. It's like $630 after mail-in rebates, but the GPU itself does come with a couple of free games, so if you value those at $30, and those games are pretty good, so you should value them at $30. You kind of get it for $600, and if you find a couple of deals, you can get this for $600 flat. Now, this is going to be an all AMD build. I think the AMD route is the best option in terms of the GPU at this price point. However, the CPU, you could vary. Instead of going with the AMD CPU I went with, you could go with something like an Intel Core i5-8400. So if you do want an Intel CPU, if you like that upgrade path better, by all means, get a CPU like the i5-8400, get a capable motherboard, and you can go from there. But without further ado, with all that out of the way, let's talk about this build, and let's start things off with the CPU. That's what I always did, and this here we have the AMD Ryzen 5 2600 3.4 GHz 6-core processor. This is going for around $165. So this is a great deal on a 6-core CPU. A great budget CPU if outside of just gaming you also want to do things like video editing on Sony Vegas, or you want to do some live streaming. The Ryzen 5 2600 acts as a very accessible CPU that won't break the bank either. You can't really go for a CPU north of $200 at this budget, so I thought this CPU was good enough while not breaking the bank all too much. Since this is the vanilla 2600, you do get a packed-in CPU cooler, which is quite nice. And I know a lot of you guys would rather fit in a 2600X, however, if you look at the price of that CPU, it's like $220, $230, and that's just too expensive at a $600 budget. A good CPU, but at this kind of a budget, the Ryzen 5 2600 will do very well. Next up with the motherboard, this is another area where I had to go a little bit lower end than I wanted to, but for the sake of the budget, we went with the Gigabyte B450M. It's a micro ATX motherboard for around $70, but it's got a lot of great features. It's got 4 RAM slots, which that was the main thing I was looking for. With a lot of micro boards, you will be stuck with 2 RAM slots, and that's just not gonna fly, especially at this budget with the RAM. I had to make a limitation that I didn't really want to, but it's something that we had to do to fit it into the budget. Still, with 4 RAM slots, that's gonna give you the upgrade path that you need down the line. So this is just a great budget end board all around. Yes, it's micro ATX, but it's going to offer you all the features you need. 4 SATA 60 per second ports as well, so that's very nice, and at $70, a solid pickup. Let's talk about the RAM now. As I mentioned a second ago, I had to limit this more than I wanted to. I really wanted to fit in 16 gigabytes of RAM. It just really isn't possible at this kind of budget. 16 gigabytes of RAM is just so exceedingly expensive. You know, you're looking at $130, $140, and that's just too expensive at this kind of budget. So you're going to stick with 8 gigabytes right now, specifically the G.Skill Aegis 8GB, 2 4GB sticks, DDR4 2400 megahertz is around $75. Now, RAM is something that's going to fluctuate all the time, and this is just the one that specifically, as of recording this video, I thought was a good deal. If you follow r/build-a-PC sales, you really can take advantage of some good RAM deals, and you can get it for a little bit cheaper. Might be a different brand, but who cares? Everybody should want to save as much money as possible on RAM because it's just exceedingly expensive right now. Yes, it's 8 gigabytes, but $75 is so much, and a lot of you guys will say, is 8 gigabytes enough for gaming? Well, if you look at the majority of titles, at the very least, 8 gigabytes will cover the minimum requirement, and more often than not, it will cover the recommended requirement as well. If you look at a game like Monster Hunter World, that recommends 8 gigabytes of RAM, and you don't see games having like a 12 gigabyte minimum RAM threshold. That just typically doesn't happen. Even with the higher end games, it's usually at the very least, it'll be 8 gigabytes minimum, 6 gigabytes even, and sometimes you even see 4 gigabytes listed as minimum RAM. So 8 gigabytes is going to get you through for now. However, just be open-minded to the fact that you will need to upgrade to 16 gigabytes some point down the line. That's just going to help out your PC a lot. And as I mentioned, the motherboard does have 4 RAM slots, so you can take advantage of dual channel memory right now, and down the line you will be able to go for that 16 gigabyte configuration, no problem. Now let's talk about storage. The Western Digital Caviar Blue, all these years later, is still the go-to route for a mechanical drive, and that's what we got here. A little bit cheaper a year later though. A Caviar Blue 1TB is available for $43.89, not that typical $50, so that's quite a good price for a 1TB. As far as an SSD goes, I don't have one personally selected out, so I'm not going to factor that into the final price, but you can get 120GB SSDs really cheap. We're talking $30. That's how cheap you can get 120GB SSDs. That's going to be a great option, and if you can squeeze out that extra cash, I would highly recommend you to do so. I see a Kingston 120GB SSD for just $33 right now, so I'll leave a link to that in the description box below if you want to grab that as well. You could forego the Caviar Blue entirely and get like a 240GB SSD. You can probably even get like a 500 gig for not that much more expensive, so that is something to look at. I do think the majority of gamers are going to need the mass storage that the Caviar Blue offers, so that's why I have that in there, especially with a lot of recent games like a Final Fantasy 15 being 100 gigabytes. In my opinion, you need at least 1 terabyte of storage available, and more often than not, I would recommend you to have 2 or 3 terabytes, especially if you want to get into things like YouTubing, video editing, having a lot of videos and movies downloaded. Even 1 terabyte is rather limiting these days, but I think for the majority of people it'll get you by, especially because you can just delete and reinstall games, so that should be no problem. So enough about the storage, let's get to the most important part, the video card. What prevented us so long from getting high quality budget-oriented PCs, but that is a thing of the past, because the ASRock Phantom Gaming X Radeon RX 580 is one of the best value-oriented GPUs, not just right now, that I've ever seen. That is not hyperbolic. That is absolutely the truth. So let's run down this GPU. It's an 8GB GPU. It's got awesome performance at 1080p. If you do want to go to 1440p, you can push some performance there as well. Right now, it's available for $220 after a $20 mail-in rebate. So just that is a great price, but it doesn't stop there. Right now, if you pick this GPU up, you also get an AMD gift that'll grant you access to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Strange Brigade, and Star Control Origins. AC Odyssey is a game that you've got to value at least $50, and Strange Brigade looks like a pretty nice little game. I would say value that at least $20. It's going for $50 or $60. It's an upcoming title. And Star Control Origins has an MSRP of $40 as well. Let's say you value that at $20. Well, AC Odyssey at $50, Strange Brigade at $20, Star Control Origins at $20. That's $90. Now, of course, would it be better to get an RX 580 flat for like $130 after the $20 mail-in rebate? Sure. But that's just not going to happen anytime soon. If you actually assess it from a value-centric standpoint, this is an incredible, incredible deal. Again, one of the best deals that I've ever seen on a GPU. It is just so good. Now, if this specific deal isn't available, there are a ton of other RX 580s. They're going for around $250. They're all coming with this AMD gift. And yes, the GTX 1060 is a pretty nice option as well, but it doesn't have that free gift. I believe they're coming with Destiny 2 and the expansion. I don't know. I'd rather get Assassin's Creed Odyssey and 2 other games on top of that. A lot of you guys comment saying stuff like they should pay you to play Destiny 2, and you guys are pretty disparaging towards the game. I'm not here to get into that debate right now. The 1060, not a bad option, but this is cheaper. They're neck and neck in performance, and overall, it's just a better value with this 580. For the case, we went with the good old faithful Corsair 200R. This is still an exceptional mid-tower case for the price. It's going for around $59.99. I've seen it cheaper than this. I've seen it as low as like $44.99, which that price was just ridiculous. But right now, $60, I would say that's a good deal for a quality mid-tower case. Is it anything incredible? No, you don't have a great side window, but I'm not going for anything that's really about presentation and your design of your PC. I don't really care about that at a budget. At a budget-oriented PC, I'm strictly looking for performance, so you could get an even cheaper case if you want. However, the RX 580 is quite a beefy card, so you do need a bigger case to house that, and the 200R fits that bill without being excessively expensive, and I also like the very simplistic look it's got going for it. You don't need something so towering that you can show off to all your friends. Something like this, for someone like me that's seen so many high-end PCs, I kind of dig the more simple look. And lastly, for the power supply, I went with the standard EVGA 500 watt 80 plus bronze certified power supply. You can usually find this on sale for a little bit cheaper than it is right now. Right now, I'm seeing it for around $45. I've seen this as low as like $35, so hopefully you can find a better deal on this than I found. Otherwise, there are deals available on power supplies literally all the time. This is one of the components that you can easily find a deal on nearly every day. Just have a look at r/build-a-PC sales, and these power supplies go on sale all the time. The Corsair CX series, another budget-oriented power supply series, those also go on sale rather frequently. I see a CX 450M for around $27 right now. 450 watts might be cutting it a little bit close with a 580. The Seasonic M12 520 bronze is also available for $54.90. It's really all about what is available at the given time. So even if I say a specific power supply right now, chances are you're going to be able to find a much better deal on it. So as I mentioned, power supply is one area where I recommend you to do the work and decide finding it. Just look at what the best available deal is at that given moment. But right now, if we are speaking from the moment I am recording this video, the EVGA 500 watt power supply for around $44-$45 isn't a bad option. The CX450M is available for $27. That's cutting it a little closer than I'd like, but still it should be able to get the job done, and that's only $27. So like I said, all the time deals are available. Try to utilize that advantage to the best of your ability. So that's gonna wrap up this video. The total cost comes to around $670 before the mail-in rebates. After the mail-in rebates, you're looking at $630. Remember that you do get those 3 free games, and if you value them at $30, there you go, right there, you're at $600. And if you do find a couple of good deals on, say, the memory, the case, maybe you can find a discounted motherboard, well then you're looking at even less than $600, so you're all golden. For a long time, it seemed like a $600 PC build would never be possible, but now we're at a point where it is possible, and it's an excellent 1080p machine. The RX 580 is a great GPU, and right now that value is so good that you're getting out of it. Yes, the 580 has been out for a long time. If this was a different era and the same window of the 580's release was applied to it, say a GPU like the Radeon HD 7850 back in the day, after it's out for a year and a half, it'll plummet in price. But the 580 obviously did not plummet in price because we had that crypto journey to go on, but that does seem like to be a thing of the past, at least for now. Again, a great $600 option. If you guys would like to see any other budgets, leave them in the comment section down below. Of course, we are coming up on new NVIDIA GPUs, so these prices are going to get a lot more interesting. But let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Good to be back doing PC builds, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.